Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back, way back to the hot, hazy heart of prehistoric Australia. Picture yourself in the dead silence of the outback where the air simmers and the ground crunches under your boots. No towns, no Wi-Fi, just you, the swirling red dust, and something very large, breathing in the distance. The light is weird, harsh, and golden, like the sun doesn't quite trust the sky. And somewhere nearby, in the branches of a gnarled eucalyptus tree, is a creature you've probably never heard of. One that's built like a linebacker, sleeps like a sloth, and hunts like a tiger. This is the world of the marsupial lion. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You land softly in the deep past. No time machine. Sound effects here, just a warm whoosh of wind that lifts your hair and a familiar crunch underfoot. You're barefoot actually. That seems important. The earth beneath you is cracked and dry, sharp-edged like broken pottery. A field of ochre dunes unfolds ahead, glowing faintly under a thick blanket of stars. The night sky in this ancient time looks unreasonably bright, like someone turned the Milky Way's saturation dial way too far. And there beside a boulder, shaped suspiciously like a sleeping wombat, are claw marks. Not the kind that say help, but the kind that say I'm bored and I own this rock. You crouch down for a closer look and realize just how big these claws are. Each one is thicker than your pinky and spaced as far apart as piano keys. Something huge walked here recently. And it wasn't in a hurry. Historians still argue whether marsupial lions, Thylacoleo, carnifex, if you're feeling Latin tonight, were ambush predators, climbers, scavengers, or some mythical combo of all three. What's clear is that their presence loomed over Pleistocene Australia like a shadow with teeth. Their name sounds cuddly, marsupial lion, but they were anything but. Think fewer cuddles, more punctured spinal cords. You hike further, your footsteps muffled by reddish dust as fine as flour. It clings to your ankles, your nose, even the tiny creases behind your ears. Somewhere in the distance, a low thud echoes, like a fridge tipping over in slow motion. Probably just a tree falling. Probably. The terrain undulates now, flat desert, giving way to low, scrubby hills, dotted with mulga trees. One trunk has been shredded down the side, 5 deep gashes carved clean through bark and sapwood. A claw test, just a little mark like a post-it note, left for any other predator thinking of claiming the area. Thylacoleo was here, and yes, still hungry. You pass a strange bone, long, twisted, slightly charred. Charred, but who would be cooking out here? The lions certainly weren't lighting campfires. You frown, pocket the thought, and continue. Just ahead, the moonlight catches on something nestled in a hollow between boulders. At first glance, it looks like a pile of sleeping bags. Then your eyes adjust and you realize it's a sleeping lion. Not like the lions in Africa. This one's more compressed, stocky, tail short like someone forgot to finish it. But the shoulders, those are a problem. They bulge under fur like engine parts. One massive paw curled in sleep flexes gently, every so often revealing retractable claws that could open a coconut. You stay still. Breathe quietly. The lion exhales a long hot gust, then rolls lazily onto its back. You notice the stripes, now pale bands along its flank barely visible against tawny fur. There's something unsettling about how peacefully it sleeps, as if it knows nothing can touch it. You take a cautious step back. Another. A twig snaps beneath your foot and the lion's ear twitches. Just once, you freeze. The lion doesn't stir further. Instead, it lets out a sound like a cat sighing after licking too much fur. You've never been so scared of something making such a relatable noise. Nearby, a smaller creature darts from bush to bush, a bandicoot maybe. Or a very brave rat. It's fast, jittery, and obviously not interested in ending up as lion sushi. You understand completely. In the distance, lightning flickers, cloud to cloud flashes with no thunder, just quiet drama. The lion shifts again and lets out a half snore, half growl. You watch it breathe, marveling at the bulk of its ribcage, the curve of its tuskless, flattened face. This thing didn't look like a predator from the movies. It looked like a predator from a fever dream. Did it nap like this every night? Did it wait for the stars to come out before climbing down and terrorizing kangaroos into extinction? Historians still debate whether Thylacoleo was mostly nocturnal or used its incredible climbing ability to ambush prey in daylight. Some say it hunted in packs. Others argue it was a solitary bruiser, a quiet assassin. Honestly, watching it sleep, you're tempted to lean towards solitary. This thing doesn't look like it played well with others. The wind picks up, carrying with it a scent both dry and coppery. Blood? No, just iron-rich dust. You exhale slowly, realizing you've been holding your breath for way too long. Then a thought hits you. If this lion is asleep, where are the others? The idea sits in your chest like a flat tire. Slowly, you turn and scan the horizon. No glowing eyes, no shifting shadows. But the outback is full of tricks, full of things that only move when you're looking away. Things that nap in trees, yes, but wake up fast. You back away, slowly leaving the lion to its dreams, its power, and its perfect camouflage among the stones. Morning into Pleistocene hits like a kiln door swinging open. You blink through golden haze, the kind that turns everything into a watercolor, blurry around the edges, heavy with heat and promise. Your footsteps crunch across an ancient salt pan. Its surface webbed with fractures like the earth has been smiling too long and cracked from the effort. Welcome to what used to be an inland sea. You can almost hear the ghost waves lapping from 2 million years ago. Now it's just a shimmering flatness, bordered by scraggly trees and scatterings of fossilized fish bones. You're standing in what would have been beachfront property if the ocean hadn't ghosted this place eons ago. Around you, the outback breathes in slow, stifling gusts. Cicadas, descendants of survivors, buzz like an overheating microwave. Something in the bushes coughs and then pretends it didn't. A harmless wallaby or a megafaunal grazer that hasn't realized it's extinct yet. Either way, you're not alone. The salt crust pops as you walk, the cracks widening under your weight. You imagine the early marsupial lions creeping across this same terrain. Low quiet, their fur brushed with sweat-damp clay. Their padded paws would barely register on this earth, but their presence, oh, it would pulse, like static electricity right behind your ear. You squat to study a trail, deep hoofprints veering off in multiple directions, panicked. The toes are long, the stride erratic. Something was running, fast. Multiple somethings even. A herd, probably. Maybe diprotodons, their name makes them sound like cartoon villains. But they were essentially sofa-sized wombats. Big, bulky, but dumb as a sack of yams. Still, even big dumb wombats don't panic unless there's a good reason. You look ahead. That's when you notice the claw marks again. Faint, shallow grooves in the clay like someone dragged a rake sideways, just barely scoring the surface. Not random. Not wind-made. deliberate, and fresh. Too fresh. You know that sensation when your stomach quietly gets up and exits your body? Yeah, that. It's funny to think that this now silent landscape once held such chaos. Megafauna crashing through the brush. Lions that didn't roar but snapped shattering windpipes, with jaws shaped more like bolt cutters than fangs. No living cat has a bite quite like Thylacoleo carnifex. Their teeth didn't pierce like needles. They sheared like scissors. And their skulls were built for it wide at the back, reinforced like the front end of a bulldozer. Researchers still debate whether these predators use stealth or shock. Some fossils suggest stalking. Others hint at sudden explosive ambushes. Their prey pretty much anything that wasn't already nailed to the ground. Wombats. Giant flightless birds. Kangaroos that could bench press you with their tails. The occasional ill-fated scavenger. And yes, humans eventually. But you haven't reached that part of the tour yet. Your gaze follows the trail into the lowlands where brackish puddles still cling to life. Saltbush and spinifex thickets shiver in the wind. They shouldn't. There is no wind, which means something big just passed through. You step cautiously, your shadow stretching ahead like it's trying to leave first. And then there's the smell. Not quite decay, but something gamey meaty, warm. Like a laundry basket full of old jerky. You wrinkle your nose. Ahead, a dip in the land reveals a natural basin surrounded by gnarled rocks and prickly shrubs. The depression still holds water just a little enough to tempt the desperate. And there, etched deep into the rimstone, are claw marks so wide apart you could fit your forearm between them. This must have been a regular nap spot. A lion's sun lounger. Imagine its muscles like coiled rope ears, twitching at every insect hum breath steady despite the oven-like heat. Every predator has its haunt and you've stumbled right into one. The funny thing, there's still no sign of the lion. Not a single snore, not even a tail flick. Instead you hear rustling, low, repetitive, not lion-like, more clumsy. You creep closer, parting the grass. A giant echidna. Yep, an actual prehistoric spiny anteater, the size of a beanbag chair, is rooting around in the soil, completely oblivious to your existence. Its spines twitch like antennae. Its snout snorting little dust clouds as it goes full vacuum mode on an unfortunate termite mound. You let out a breath and chuckle. The lion's probably off doing lion things. Stalking, snacking, sleeping somewhere with a better view. The outback is large after all. And so far it seems merciful. But for ancient herbivores, it wasn't merciful at all. Back in the day, there was no safe hour. Even midday naps carried risk, especially near waterholes like this where prey congregated, and lions well napped, or waited, or both. Archaeologists have even uncovered signs of scratch posts, tree trunks worn smooth from years of sharpening claws and scent marking. Thylacoleo wasn't just powerful. It was particular. It returned to places. It owned them, marked them, remembered them. So imagine you're one of those sofa-sized wombats, strolling down here for a drink. You bend down, lap some water tail, twitching happily, then boom. Two paws, like furry anvils, hit your back, and you're down before you even process that death smells like eucalyptus leaves and hot fur. That's the world you're walking through. Gorgeous, yes. Majestic, but also brutal. And just to top things off, there are researchers today who believe the marsupial lion may have hunted not with brute force alone, but with strategy. It might have stalked prey for hours, waited in the trees, timed its attacks. That kind of intelligence is terrifying, not just instinct, intention. You stand quietly now, gazing across the landscape. The salt pan, the puddles, the clawed trees and torn roots. Everything here whispers old stories. Most of them end with a chase, or a scream, or a nap that never finishes. You take one last step into the cracked basin, careful not to disturb whatever sleeping history lies underfoot. And above you, unseen something shifts. You freeze. It's that ancient limb-locking stillness humans developed long before we invented doorbells or office chairs, when standing very still could mean the difference between a live and local cave painting. Above you a low creak, a branch bending not from wind but weight. You look up, and there it is, a marsupial lion, perched. Yes, perched. This isn't a creature sulking on the ground like a lazy panther. No, this one has dragged itself a good 3 meters into the fork of a eucalypt tree, wedged comfortably between the branches like some kind of terrifying beanbag chair made of teeth and muscle. Its legs hang limply over either side, and its head rests on its paw in the most casual "don't mind me, just plotting your doom" pose imaginable. Its eyes are mostly closed, but not fully. One lid flicks open, and that's enough. It sees you, but it doesn't move, doesn't growl, just stares. And slowly, so very slowly, its jaw cracks open in a yawn that could fit your entire backpack. Here's the fun part. Marsupial lions didn't just sleep in trees, they hunted from them. Scholars still argue whether they were true ambush climbers or simply used trees as safe shaded nap zones. But fossilized claw marks found halfway up ancient trunks suggest these chunky murder koalas were in fact capable climbers, even with all that weight. How? Well, turns out their thumbs were special, opposable, strong, with a long semi-retractable claw that worked like a mountaineer's ice pick. Combine that with beefy forearms and a center of gravity like a wrecking ball, and you get a surprisingly agile tree stalker. So yeah, your current nightmare is brought to you by ancient anatomy. The lion watches as you back away from the basin step by dusty step, trying not to break eye contact, trip, or scream. You've never been stared at by something that could crush your skull with its jaw muscles alone. And honestly, you hope this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. As you retreat, the lion does nothing. Just lazily turns its head to follow you like a cat, watching a dust mote it may or may not decide to murder. Eventually, you duck behind a boulder and wait, ears ringing with silence. You expect pursuit, a leap, a chase, but it never comes. The lion either isn't hungry or is saving you for later. Fun thought, you regroup near the base of a ridge, where the air is cooler and the brush thicker. Here, a trail winds through silvery shrubs and the ground feels more compact. It's the kind of place that offers both shade and visibility ideal for an ambush. You lower your voice instinctively. You're not alone. There's movement ahead, low and fast. A group of kangaroos, but not like the ones in modern petting zoos. These are Procoptodon, short-faced kangaroos, some of which could stand nearly 10 feet tall. Picture a cross between a kangaroo, a bouncer, and a forklift. Their heads are blocky, their arms short and oddly human, and their legs massive. Designed not for bounding but for striding. That's right, they walked. Like people. Huge, upright, herbivorous people who could kick your chest through your spine. They're gathered around a patch of low shrubs, munching in awkward silence. One looks up sharply, sniffs. Its ears flick, and then all of them scatter. No sound preceded it, no warning. But every kangaroo bolts sideways backward, diagonally crashing into brush and vanishing like spooked ghosts. You flatten yourself to the dirt. Your eyes scan the ridgeline, and then you see it, a blur, low golden and impossibly fast. The marsupial lion, not the tree one, a different one. This one is moving like a land missile, tail stiff, for balanced legs churning in a way that looks wrong. Efficient, like it's not even trying and yet gaining on its prey like gravity itself gave it a push. And then it leaps. From a sprint it launches upward, not forward up, to intercept a kangaroo mid-stride. It hits with a thump you feel more than hear all momentum collapsing into one glorious dusty impact. The kangaroo stumbles, then falls, kicks once, then lies still. The lion doesn't roar. It pants, licks its lips, and begins the unhurried, messy process of dinner. This is what ruled Australia, not T-Rex, not saber-tooths, not even your average big cats. Thylacoleo was its own brand of brutal, a marsupial assassin. It didn't need venom, didn't need numbers, just claws, jaws, and a decent tree branch when it felt sleepy. You sit back stunned. It's one thing to read about an animal's strength, another to watch it in motion. And here's the part: paleontologists still argue about how widespread this behavior was. Did all marsupial lions stalk kangaroos this way? Or was it a regional adaptation? Did they specialize like some leopards today? Do with monkeys or fish? There are no clear answers, just old bones and the patterns we try to scrape from them. You rise, brushing dust from your knees, careful to move quietly. The lion's too busy to care about you now. Still, you're not keen on hanging around for dessert. As you slip away, something glints in the dirt. Pale, thin, half buried in clay. A tooth, not fresh, fossilized, flat-edged like a chisel. The cutting molar of Thylacoleo carnifex. And it hits you. These lions weren't just killers. They were specialists. Their teeth weren't for chewing. They were for slicing. Their molars were bladed like steak knives. That's why their jaws didn't move side to side. They didn't grind. They sheared. Another reminder this lion didn't roar. It snipped. You pocket the tooth gently as a keepsake. A souvenir from a world where naps and violence shared the same schedule. As you continue along the ridgeline, the sun lifts higher, burning away the mist. The land stretches wide, empty but not silent, not if you listen closely. Somewhere another tree creaks. The air thickens now like syrup poured over scorched stone. You're walking under an unforgiving sun, every breath catching in your throat, tasting like dry metal and eucalyptus. Even your thoughts start to slow down, softened by the shimmer of heat rising off the outback floor. And yet above you, somewhere in that endless blue sky, there's the rustle of branches. You look up. There it is again. High in a spindly desert oak, another marsupial lion is draped across a limb, dangling its back legs as if it just gave up halfway through getting comfortable. It twitches occasionally, tail thumping lazily like it's dreaming of snacks. And yes, it's absolutely sleeping up there like it pays rent. Now, this whole tree-lounging behavior is still debated among researchers. Some insist Thylacoleo was mostly ground-based, while others point to their powerful forelimbs, short tails and muscular shoulders as evidence that they were excellent climbers. Kind of like if a bear married a leopard and then forgot how to be graceful. Whatever the truth, the fact remains you're looking at a predator that napped in trees and didn't care who knew it. It's almost funny. All that strength, all those prehistoric murder tools built into its body. And here it is, snoring like a chainsaw full of warm milk. Still, the position is strategic. From up there, it can scan the surrounding plain, its golden eyes, narrowed against the glare. And when the heat breaks or prey blunders too close, snap. It's in the dirt and something else isn't. You move quietly through the trees, stepping over roots and squinting through the haze. The underbrush rustles nearby. You pause, expecting another kangaroo or echidna, but it's something much smaller and far more familiar. A dingo. But not quite. This one's longer, lankier. Its snout more wolfish. Its ears alert but uncertain. It's a ghost of a species, likely an ancient relative to the modern dingo, but this version hasn't been cuddled by humans or given a name like Milo. It growls softly, sniffing the air. Senses something you can't. It bolts. That's never a good sign. Suddenly, the air around you tightens. Not with sound, but with absence of it. The birds go silent. Even the insects seem to stop buzzing as if they've dropped their instruments mid-song and left the stage. This kind of quiet usually comes right before a lion drops out of a tree. You glance up, nothing. Good. Then you hear a thud behind you. Spinning around your heart doing that unpleasant pogo thing, you spot claw marks freshly carved into the bark of a eucalyptus trunk. Deep, angry, still flaking. Whatever made them just missed a chance to turn you into a prehistoric chew toy. The lion isn't there now, but it was. It must have been watching you. This too is part of their reputation. Not just brute force, but patience. Some scholars suggest Thylacoleo was more ambush artist than chase predator. It didn't run long distances. It waited, calculated, waited some more. That's what makes it so haunting. It wasn't just a predator, it was deliberate. You continue past the grove, emerging onto a rise overlooking a broad flatland. The land is cracked and split like someone tried to peel the continent open. Far off, a herd of lumbering diprotodons stirs, a few dozen of them, stirring the dust into lacy spirals. They shuffle and snort like cows, but with the unfortunate grace of overinflated beanbags. Their feet crush the grass, their nostrils twitch with suspicion. You watch as one plods toward a stand of trees, and just like that, a lion launches out of the shadows. No warning, no roar, just impact. The diprotodon flails, wheezing, as its weight twists awkwardly. The lion is already on its back, jaws sunk in just behind the skull. The creature lets out one low, rattling bellow, then falls. 1 minute of noise, and then silence. You sit down, stunned again, by how quiet it becomes after violence in the outback. No drama, no screaming vultures, just dust settling. You'd expect something so muscular to leave chaos in its wake. But Thylacoleo is more surgical than savage. And after the takedown, a nap. Always a nap. In fact, some researchers believe these lions may have slept more than modern carnivores. They had low endurance, high impact hunting styles, meaning hunt once, eat for days, then snooze, which makes sense. Sleep is safety. Sleep is strength recovery. Sleep is probably what you need right now, but your adrenaline disagrees. You duck into a rocky alcove shaded by overhanging boulders, where the temperature drops by a precious few degrees. Inside, the stone walls are streaked with mineral stains, and the floor is littered with old bones, kangaroo femurs, bird skulls, cracked jawbones. A natural lion larder. A napping cave. You imagine one curling up in here, tail around its nose, paws twitching in dreams. What would a marsupial lion dream about kangaroos probably? Or wind? Or the simple joy of leaping off a rock and turning physics into fear? It's strange. These creatures are extinct, gone for tens of thousands of years. And yet, out here, they still feel present, still lurking, still watching. You close your eyes for a second, just a second. Somewhere above another branch creaks. Of course it does. You wake up before you realize you fell asleep. A blink, a heartbeat, a moment of stillness that stretches far too long and suddenly the shadows have shifted, the heat has mellowed, and the lion is gone. No growl, no scream, just absence. The little cave you huddled in now feels colder somehow, as if the air itself is holding its breath. Outside, the sun droops lower on the horizon, tinting everything with a buttery gold that softens even the most dangerous outlines. You step into the light, cautiously brushing sandstone dust off your arms. And then you see it. Paw prints, deep ones, wide round with that distinctive central pad, and 3 toe points almost feline, but not quite. Most cats don't leave tracks like this. These are more like a leopard that accidentally wore bare shoes. You follow them instinctively, curiosity, winning the battle against your better judgment. The trail winds down into a dry gully where the trees grow sparser but taller, angular white gums casting long striped shadows across the red dirt. You can picture it now, the lion moving silently through the brush low to the ground, scanning for a hint of movement. Maybe it was hunting. Maybe it was bored. Maybe it was just looking for the perfect spot to take its next nap. Because here's something no one really expects. Thylacoleo carnifex had paws built for climbing and killing, but not for speed. It couldn't chase its prey for long. It had short limbs, powerful shoulders, that opposable thumb, with the monstrous retractable claw. Yeah, it worked like a can opener on bones. But sprinting, not really its thing. So how did it survive? Simple. It ambushed, it lured, it waited. And when the time was right, it pounced. You crouch near a tree trunk and examine a different kind of clue. Not a paw print, but a scratch. Vertical, straight down the bark. Several, actually. Each one about as long as your forearm, spaced evenly clean and deep. These weren't casual marks. This was deliberate. Marking territory, practicing, stretching after a good nap. Scientists are still unsure. Some believe marsupial lions use trees like sharpening posts. Others say it was a social marker. Hey, this is my tree. Back off. One theory even suggests the scratches could have been part of a mating display. So yes, in ancient Australia, you may have needed both teeth and artistic flair to get a date. You laugh to yourself, which is probably a mistake, because a moment later there's a sound that cuts through the dry wind. Crunch. Not yours. You freeze. Slowly, so slowly, you turn your head toward the ridge. A silhouette stands against the sinking sun's shoulders, hunched tail, swinging head low. It's not moving, it's watching. The lion. Its coat glows almost orange in the backlight with darker stripes fading down the flanks. Its mouth hangs slightly open, tongue lolling in the heat. Its eyes lock with yours. And then, just as casually as it appeared, it lies down. Yep, just drops right there. Tail flicks once. Head rests on its paws. It's not stalking you. It's ignoring you. You are not a threat. You are not a snack. You are background noise. That somehow is both a relief and a deep personal insult. Still, the closeness is breathtaking. You study its paws, massive padded with that signature thumb claw curled inward. Its fur is shorter than you expected, coarser. And those jaws. You remember reading that Thylacoleo had the strongest bite of any mammalian predator pound for pound. Stronger than a lion, even stronger than a hyena. Tests using 3D reconstructions and stress modeling have shown that its skull could handle pressures that would crack modern bones like pretzels. And its front teeth, not shaped like fangs but like scissors. Bone shears. Pure shearing power. So yes, this sleepy pancake of a beast could cut through a kangaroo femur with a single bite. It yawns again. You flinch again. And then it does something you did not expect. It climbs. From a crouch, it rises fluidly, then pads over to the nearest tree and ascends. Not like a squirrel, not even like a cat, more like a wrestler, hauling themselves onto a turnbuckle. It digs in with those front claws, finds a groove, pulls, and plants its back legs against the bark. Then again. Then again. In seconds, it's 10 feet above the ground. It finds a thick limb, turns once, and settles down again. A hammock of muscle and fur, still watching you. It knows this tree, it knows this spot, and you realize with a chill that skips along your skin that this was never your journey. You've just been walking through its territory the whole time. You shift, slightly unsure what to do. Run, hide, offer snacks. Instead, you slowly sit. You're not prey, not right now. You're something else, an observer, a visitor. A ghost of the future come to witness a creature that no longer exists in a moment that feels entirely real. You sit like that for a while, 5 minutes, maybe 10. The sun continues its downward creep. The shadows stretch longer, leaner. The wind picks up again, rustling leaves, whispering old names. You wonder if the lion remembers this spot, if lions remember anything at all. You wonder if maybe, just maybe, you're not the first to sit and watch it nap. And you're definitely not the last to feel this very specific blend of awe and oh no in the pit of your stomach. The lion blinks slowly. Its head sinks lower. And just like that, it's asleep again. No drama, no flourish, just a nap. A nap in a tree. A nap like it's the most natural thing in the ancient world. You've been watching the lion sleep in the tree for what feels like an hour. Maybe it has been an hour. Time moves differently here, stretched out by silence, and the warmth radiating from the rocks like a low, ancient heartbeat. The lion hasn't moved except for the occasional tail flick, and one slow chest, deep sigh that sounds weirdly like your uncle after Thanksgiving dinner. It's peaceful, too peaceful, and then your eyes catch something. Scratches. Not new ones this time, older, faint, barely there, carved into the sun-bleached rocks below the tree in a curling, looping pattern. At first, they look like animal marks, but then you see it rhythm repetition, deliberate spacing. These weren't made by claws. They were etched by humans. You crouch, brushing dust aside with your sleeve. The symbols snake along the stone surface lines, dots, swirls. Simple but purposeful. A warning, a map, a story. Maybe all three. Because here's the kicker: humans did overlap with Thylacoleo. The first Aboriginal Australians likely arrived over 60,000 years ago, and Thylacoleo didn't go extinct until around 46,000 years ago. That means for thousands of years, people and marsupial lions coexisted on this same harsh red earth. Now, whether they respected each other, or hated each other, or just kept a very careful, very mutual distance, that part's still debated. Some theories suggest humans may have helped drive the marsupial lion to extinction through overhunting or habitat change. Others argue it was climate or competition, or all three stacked like a bad poker hand. But whatever the cause, one thing's certain: humans remembered Thylacoleo. You stand, letting your eyes trace the ridgeline. Imagine being one of those early humans. No fences, no fire-starting YouTube tutorials. Just you, a stick, and the constant possibility that something with blade-shaped molars is waiting in the trees. You wouldn't walk casually through the bush, you'd slink. You'd listen. You'd leave symbols on stones just like this, hoping someone else might survive long enough to read them. You follow the path etched into the rock, winding through sun-cracked brush toward a narrow ravine. The trees grow thinner here and the air sharpens, not colder, just more alert, like it's holding something back. The floor of the ravine is littered with bones, not scattered, arranged. some in loose circles, others stacked under ledges tucked neatly in crevices. Mostly kangaroo and wombat remains, but there's something ritualistic about it. Like the lion came here to eat and remember. And suddenly you're standing in what might have been a kill zone, or a den, or both, a sleeping chamber, for something that didn't mind a few corpses nearby. You swallow and step deeper in. At the far end of the ravine, the walls widen and rise into a natural rock amphitheater, open to the sky. Shafts of late afternoon light spill through the trees above, revealing strange discolorations on the stone. And there, on the back wall, you see it. Art. Primitive, yes, faint, but real. The figure is unmistakable. Squat, muscular, wide-jawed. A tail. Paws. Fangs, or maybe just exaggerated molars. A creature in motion, all forward force and predator energy. Someone long ago looked at a marsupial lion and decided, this thing must be remembered. It's surrounded by handprints, ochre outlines, made by blowing pigment over palms pressed to rock. Most are small, children maybe, others larger, elders, hunters, or both. A community left its mark here, and at the center of it, all the lion. You wonder what they thought as they painted. Was it fear? Respect? Some long lost, spiritual symbol of strength? The real mystery. These depictions don't seem frantic. They're not just look out, this will eat you. They're careful, composed. There's a weird calm in the way the lion is drawn, as if the people weren't just trying to escape the beast, but understand it. And maybe that's what makes this creature so fascinating. It wasn't just claws and bites and danger. It was part of the rhythm of the land, an echo in the rocks, a curve in the stories. You sit on a flat ledge, staring up at the mural, letting the shadows lengthen. There's something humbling about knowing you're not the first person to sit here in silence, surrounded by bones, looking up at a portrait of a creature that once ruled this land. And not with speed, not with packs, but with precision, patience, power. In modern zoos, we admire lions for their pride, structure, their teamwork, but Thylacoleo, it didn't need anyone else. It was strong enough to hunt solo, and sleepy enough to nap like it paid union dues. You lie back on the warm rock and imagine what this place sounded like 50,000 years ago. The rustle of leaves, the warning cries of birds, the sudden thud of paws hitting earth, the whisper of claws on bark, and underneath it all the quiet breath of something ancient, watching, always watching until it vanished. No great battle, no final showdown, just silence, just sleep. You leave the painted ravine behind, carefully retracing your steps through the bones and sun-faded brush. The air has shifted again, cooler now, more deliberate, as if the land itself is turning the page. You climb a gentle rise and find yourself looking out over a wide basin, ringed with trees and thorny shrubs. A shallow dip in the land, it cradles a waterhole, or rather what used to be a waterhole. Right now, it's a shallow soup of greenish water, edged with cracked mud beetles, and what looks like 1,000 confused frogs. And here's where things get interesting. Around the water's edge are dozens of overlapping tracks. Big ones, small ones, flat, round, three-toed, hoofed, clawed. It's a prehistoric traffic jam. You crouch and squint. They're scored in deep, leading from the brush to the water. And looping back are the unmistakable paw prints of Thylacoleo. This was a hunting ground. And maybe more intriguingly, a drinking ground. Because even the deadliest predator has to pause and slurp now and then. You move slowly around the basin's edge, ears tuned to every insect chirp and snapping twig. The light is golden now, casting long streaks across the clay. And you can almost picture it, giant wombats lumbering in. From the west, kangaroos, hopping cautiously toward the reeds, and somewhere in the shadows, a marsupial lion, crouched so still, it might be mistaken for a shadow that forgot how to leave. There's something oddly sacred about this place. Quiet, yes, but thick with memory. You stop near a particularly dense cluster of tracks, where mud still holds the shape of a long tail drag. That's when it hits you. There's a pattern here. Prints lead in from multiple angles, all converging at the same point, one flat rock that juts out just slightly into the water, like a bar stool in an ancient dive. That rock might have been the drinking spot. Preferred. Familiar. Lions, it turns out, may have had favorite seats too. Researchers today still debate the marsupial lion's water habits. Did it patrol waterholes like a crocodile? Did it climb nearby trees and wait for prey to bend down for a drink? Did it pretend to sleep in plain sight, counting on its appearance to be just weird enough for prey to overlook it? Historians argue, but the tracks here whisper one thing. Clearly, this was a meeting point, and not always a peaceful one. You find more bones near the far bank. A rib cage here, a jawbone there, all cleaned, sun-bleached, and cracked from age. Some carry distinct scoring patterns, sharp V-shaped grooves along the surface. Not gnawed, sliced. It's the signature of Thylacoleo's bite. Unlike modern lions or hyenas that crush and splinter, the marsupial lion was a slicing machine. Its bladed premolars operated like scissors on steroids. They could shear through flesh and tendon in a single bite. Not messy, not slow, efficient. That efficiency might have been what made them so dominant for so long. But here's where things start to shift. The mud under your feet is unusually soft, almost too soft. You take one step further and sink up to your ankle. With a mild squelching sound that instantly destroys any sense of dignity, you pull your foot free and stumble back. Congratulations! You found the wrong part of the waterhole. The sticky, sinking part. You back away, muttering an apology to the ancient land, and nearly trip over what appears to be a pile of crocodile dung. Yep, fossilized but unmistakably poop. Thick, fibrous, and full of tiny bone fragments. The past is never glamorous. And it's a reminder that Thylacoleo wasn't the only danger at this waterhole. Crocodiliforms, prehistoric crocodiles, some of them massive, shared this space lurking beneath the surface, while marsupial lions patrolled the banks. It was a meeting of monsters, really. Apex predators sizing each other up at opposite ends of a muddy lunch counter. Some scientists even suggest that juvenile marsupial lions may have fallen victim to crocodiles. Or, in an even more soap opera twist, lions might have stolen crocodile kills and vice versa. A proper outback feud full of sneaky thefts and growly standoffs. And now you're standing in the middle of that turf war. You look around, suddenly aware of how open you are. The trees are distant. The brush is low. There's nowhere to hide. It makes sense that Thylacoleo preferred waterholes for more than just hydration. They were natural funnels, places where prey was predictable. Animals get desperate when they're thirsty. They'll risk a lot to drink, even a lion in the trees. You climb a small knoll overlooking the basin and sit for a while imagining the scene. Diprotodons crunching through shrubs, kangaroos sniffing the air, a crocodile's eyes just above the water, and in the dappled shade of a half-dead tree, a lion, napping, maybe full, maybe waiting, maybe pretending. That was part of Thylacoleo's genius. It didn't need to roar. It didn't need to chase. It could wait. A heavy silence was its weapon. A yawn could be the last thing a prey animal saw. You take one last look at the paw prints in the mud before the wind starts erasing them again. The lion's legacy isn't gone. It's just fading quietly like ripples after a stone's been thrown. And now, as the sun dips lower and shadows stretch long enough to trip over, you start walking. Slowly, cautiously, aware that every thud of your boot is an echo where lions once stepped, and maybe, just maybe, still do in some deep dreaming part of the land. The sun finally hits that golden hour where everything turns syrupy and unreal light, pouring sideways through scrub trees and bending into warm halos around every branch. You press forward along a sloping path that winds from the waterhole into a patch of twisted woodlands. Out here, every plant seems designed to scratch, stab, or confuse you. But the lions, they loved it. Thylacoleo wasn't built for open plains. It thrived in places like these tight corridors of dry forest, scrubby cover, rocky outcrops for leaping, and of course, plenty of trees to nap in or hunt from depending on the mood. It wasn't a sprinter. It was an ambusher, a creature that used the terrain like an accessory. And now you're walking through its maze. You pause at a gnarled tree root that's grown over a collapsed stone wall. Not the work of lions, this one's human. You brush the dirt away and spot tool marks, deep grooves from stone axes or adzes. This place wasn't just lion country. It was human country too. And that's where it all starts to unravel. Because as much as climate and extinction get the headlines, the truth might be more tangled than that. Around the time Thylacoleo vanished roughly 46,000 years ago, so did a bunch of other megafauna. Giant wombats, goanna lizards, huge birds like Genornis, and more. It's often called the Pleistocene extinction in Australia. And one of the big, messy debates, whether humans helped push Thylacoleo off the edge. You sit down on a flat stone under a paperbark tree and think about it. Early Aboriginal Australians were brilliant survivors. They adapted to fire drought, changing prey and changing predators. They burned land strategically. They hunted. They traveled far and light. And if you were a marsupial lion, all muscle and ambush, that would be a problem. Unlike wombats or diprotodons, humans didn't have predictable grazing patterns. They didn't need to drink from the same waterholes every day. They were fast, clever, and most troubling of all, they had fire. Imagine you're a Thylacoleo crouched in the shadows, waiting for your usual snacks to show up. But instead, here comes a small group of upright bipeds, carrying spears, and singing quietly to each other, like they own the place. They build a fire near your tree. They know you're there. They're not even scared. That's unsettling. And if that happens enough times, your hunting grounds get smaller, your prey gets smarter, your naps get riskier. So did humans hunt Thylacoleo into extinction? Or was it more like a slow squeeze, competition, climate, habitat, and pressure combining into one quiet, irreversible fate? Historians still argue. Some say humans actively targeted Thylacoleo for meat or protection. Others believe they simply changed the ecosystem so much that lions had nowhere left to go. There's even a theory that marsupial lions retreated into smaller and smaller pockets of territory, holding on desperately until one final drought or fire or unlucky generation ended the line. Whatever the case, there's no Thylacoleo walking the outback now. At least, not that we see. You continue into the thicket following a dry creek bed choked with pale roots and strips of peeling bark. A dragonfly zips past your face. Somewhere up ahead a bird shrieks. Not a scared cry, but an annoyed one. You'll hear the flap of heavy wings and catch a glimpse of something big taking off through the trees. Probably an emu. Maybe something else. You reach a clearing, a circle of packed earth under a sprawl of blackened tree limbs. Fire came through here. Not recently, but recently enough that the memory of heat still clings to the charcoal. It could have been natural, or it could have been cultural. You kneel by a blackened log and inspect the cracked surface. Beneath the charcoal, the wood still smells like old sap. The heat must have been intense. Strategic, maybe. Fire was used by Aboriginal people to flush out prey, clear undergrowth, and create new growth zones. But if you're a marsupial lion, big, heat-sensitive, built for ambush in dense cover, this would be devastating. Suddenly, a burst of movement on your left. You whirl nothing. But then again, you know the lion wouldn't come from the left. It'd already be behind you. You breathe slowly and glance up. No golden eyes. No branches shaking. Just you and the burn zone. You find a charred skull in the debris. Not human, not lion. Looks like kangaroo adult by the size. Clean bite marks across the back as if the head was popped open like a gory kinder egg. Classic Thylacoleo signature. You set it back down, respectfully. It makes you wonder if lions ever followed fires. Like modern predators that patrol behind grassland burns to snatch up injured or fleeing animals. Did Thylacoleo figure that out? Was it smart enough to adapt to the rhythms of human fire? Or did fire chase it out of its own home? No one knows for sure. But here's something researchers do know. Thylacoleo wasn't stupid. Its brain wasn't huge, but it had complex behaviors. Navigated rocky terrain. Chose hiding spots. Climbed with purpose. It might not have been building traps or doing calculus, but it understood things. And the biggest thing, it probably understood that its world was changing. Fast. You take one last loop around the clearing, running your fingers along the charred bark, trying to imagine what this place looked like before the fire. Trees thick with leaves. Underbrush rustling with wallabies. A lion stretched on a branch, eyes half-lidded, pretending not to be interested in the kangaroo drinking just below. And then, crack! The silence snapped like a bone, and everything scattered. But now, it's just you. A skull, some ashes, and the stories carved into the dirt. And a whole lot of trees that don't nap anymore. You press forward into dusk. The light is fading, now drained from the sky like warm tea through cracked porcelain. Shadows stretch crawl blur. The outback shifts tone, not gone, not silent, but changed. The heat loosens its grip. The air smells cooler, deeper, like stone and old bark and change. A breeze whistles through the scrub, low and dry, carrying dust and something else. Loss. You descend into a shallow valley filled with scrubby bushes and flat rock shelves. At the center, a dry watercourse. Snakes through the land cracked into hexagonal plates by the sun. You kneel and press your hand to the ground. Still warm, but only barely. It's here the change really starts. The ecosystem begins to unravel. Because what's a predator without prey? Even a lion this terrifying, this smart, this adapted, can't hunt nothing. Thylacoleo didn't disappear all at once. Its world withered beneath it. Climate change began nibbling at the edges of the Pleistocene dream. Less rain, fewer waterholes, shrinking vegetation, dwindling prey. The megafauna it depended on, giant kangaroos, diprotodons, thunderbirds, all either migrated, adapted, or died. And when they went, so did the balance. You hike alongside the Oak Creek boots, crunching over dried leaves and faded tracks. At one point, you spot a long drag mark, a groove, carved into dust by a heavy tail or a limb. It's ancient, of course, just a fossil shadow. But it tells you this path was used. again and again, by something that kept walking even as the world changed around it. Some scientists describe this period as a kind of slow-motion collapse. The land wasn't emptying overnight, it was thinning. Trees died back. Floodplains turned to scrub. Fire came more often. Waterholes dried faster. And predators had to cover more ground to find the same scraps of food. You pass a spindly tree, clinging to life by sheer stubbornness, and you can't help but wonder how many Thylacoleo walked past this very plant. How many paused here, scanned the dry horizon and kept going. Because even monsters get tired, and somewhere in the fossil record that fatigue shows up. We see it in smaller lion specimens toward the end, bones less dense, growth rings stretched, joints worn down faster, lions working harder to survive, walking farther, waiting longer between kills, and perhaps losing the ability to raise cubs in a land that couldn't feed them. You come to a series of shallow caves carved into the side of a rocky ridge. Not deep enough for shelter really, but enough to offer shade. Cool air pools here like a forgotten lake. Inside the largest cavity you see a scatter of bones. And there, partially buried in the dirt, is something rare. A lion's paw print, preserved in hardened sediment surrounded by nothing else. Just one. It feels final, like someone stepped into this cave, paused, then didn't come back. You kneel beside it and trace the shape with your fingers. The print is perfect, round pad, thick toes. That weird, almost thumb where the slicing claw would have been. Not a chase, not a struggle, just a step. You lean back against the stone wall and stare at the print. Maybe it belonged to a lone female. Maybe she'd lost her territory, or her prey, or her cubs. Maybe she was old, slower than she used to be. Maybe she laid down just outside this cave, curled her muscular body into the dust, and never got up. There's something powerful in imagining the last of something. Not just the species, but the individual. The last lion, the last nap, the last dream. You hear the wind pick up and it sounds almost like breathing. The land inhales, pauses, exhales. There's a loneliness to this part of the story. The earlier sections were full of movement and ambush, leaping and slicing. But now it's footsteps that don't lead anywhere. Trees that used to be watching spots now just creak in the breeze. Waterholes that were once dinner tables now echo with insects and frogs, but no thundering herds. Some Aboriginal stories speak of creatures that retreated into the earth. When the world changed, they didn't die, they left. Faded into stone and time. Thylacoleo might be one of those. A guardian maybe, a lesson, a toothy shadow. But scientists, they talk in layers. The sediment layers at dig sites in Narakorte and Nullarbor reveal the pattern. Lion bones close to the surface mean they lived late. Almost too late. Some paleontologists argue Thylacoleo may have lasted longer in small pockets hidden from fire and spear and drought. Others disagree. They say the disappearance is clean, abrupt, but there's no clear last day. No line that says here the lion ends. Only the absence, the silence, and a fading paw print in a cave full of dust. You step outside. The valley is now cloaked in twilight. The stars are just beginning to show. 1, then 10, then hundreds. The Southern Cross hangs low and patient the same way it must have looked to the last lion watching the sky from some dry hilltop. You climb to the ridge above the cave and sit. You don't hear a lion, but you feel one. Not close, not threatening, but near enough in memory to raise the hair on your arms. Somewhere out there long ago something padded through this land with silent grace, breathed warm on the wind and left behind nothing but claw marks, stories, and a single step in stone. Darkness settles in layers, not all at once, more like a quiet curtain that drops a little more with each passing minute. The scrub, the rocks, the distant trees, they all dissolve into outlines, then silhouettes, then memory. You stay seated on the ridge still and listening as the air cools and the colors fade. And that's when the stars take over. Not just a few, but thousands. No light pollution here. No cities on the horizon. Just you, the smell of dry grass. And a sky so clear, you feel like you could scoop it with your hands. The Milky Way cuts across the heavens like a spilled glitter jar. You lean back, resting against the warm stone. It radiates heat from the day, like the land itself refuses to cool off. And somewhere down in the valley, a small bird chirps once, then nothing. It's in this quiet that you start to notice the feeling of something missing. The lions aren't here, but they should be. The marsupial lion wasn't a background character. It was the headline act. For thousands of years, it was the shadow that made prey twitch the hunter, that shaped the behavior of other creatures. Its absence feels wrong, like someone's turned off the sound in a part of the forest. This part of the world still has predators, of course. Dingoes, snakes, the occasional aggressive emu. But none of them rule like Thylacoleo did. None of them changed the conversation. You close your eyes for a moment and picture those massive muscle limbs pulling a body up a tree with terrifying ease. The yawn, the pause, the moment between sleep and strike. There was a rhythm to it, a confidence. Now there's only memory, and yet the memory remains vivid. Fossils unearthed in caves from Narakorte to Western Australia show how widespread these creatures once were. Some skeletons are so well preserved they still show the wear patterns on teeth, the stress fractures in limbs. Some even contain claw gouges in nearby stone remnants of lions, scratching, climbing, maybe even nesting. And here's the weird part. Some of those caves are still used by modern animals. Bats, small marsupials, snakes. None of them quite understand they're sleeping in the shadows of a vanished king. You shift on the rock and glance behind you. A narrow canyon dips below, faintly moonlit. The wind slides through it like a whisper. You descend carefully, boots scraping against gravel. At the bottom, you find something odd. A perfectly preserved tree stump, low to the ground. Its bark weathered into deep furrows. You brush the surface and your fingers find the grooves. 5 wide lines spaced, just so, with pressure marks that suggest pulling, not pushing. Another scratching post, still standing, still watching. This was a place Thylacoleo used, marked, owned. And now you're here uninvited and entirely alone. You sit beside the stump, back resting against it, and take a breath. The night air is full of scent dust, eucalyptus, the faint mineral tang of stone. You imagine that smell never really changed. If the lion were here now, it would recognize it, feel at home in it. And maybe that's what's most haunting of all. This place doesn't feel ancient, it feels paused, like the lions could step back in at any moment, stretch their jaws and resume whatever strange, solitary routines they lived by. But the prey is gone. The waterholes are drier. The trees don't reach as high. And the humans, well, we're different too. The marsupial lion never saw cities. It never heard gunfire. It never had to navigate highways or survive fenced land. Its enemies were drought, heat, hunger, and eventually people with clever tools and sharp memories. You think about those memories, the Aboriginal stories passed down. Some mention giant clawed beasts. Others describe animals that watched from trees and struck without warning. Are those stories about Thylacoleo possibly? Probably. But the beauty is they don't need confirmation. They exist. Just like the lion did. Just like this stump, this canyon, this wind. You glance up again. The stars shimmer harder now. A soft breeze picks up rustling the grass with careful fingers. It carries a sound, a distant hoot, maybe an owl. Maybe something older, less nameable. And suddenly, without knowing why, you whisper, "I remember you." Not to anyone, but not to no one either. Because this whole journey, this walk through bones and trees and dreams, it hasn't been about seeing Thylacoleo. It's been about feeling the space it left behind. The outline of a predator drawn not in blood, but in absence. And now that you're here, fully here, you realize the silence isn't empty. It's full of memory, of potential, of things that sleep so deeply they still echo. You close your eyes, and somewhere in the bush a branch creaks. You sleep lightly half-curled beside the claw-scored stump. Your dreams thick with dusty trails and soft thuds in the underbrush. At some point, maybe midnight, the wind shifts again. It comes from the south this time, cooler, loaded with the smell of rock and time and something. Watchful. When you open your eyes, the stars are still there. But the sky feels lower, denser, more pressing. You sit up slowly, careful not to make noise, though there's no clear reason why. The silence around you is too intact, like it's been arranged that way. Even the insects are holding their breath. And then, just beyond the reach of the silver starlight, you hear it. Scrap! Something sharp against bark. Not loud, not aggressive, just deliberate. It stops. You wait. Nothing. And now you understand what prey must have felt like. Not panic, not even fear. Just that dizzying tension between move and don't move. Muscles coiled tight. Eyes wide. Ears tuned to a frequency you didn't know you had. It's irrational, of course. The lions are extinct. They've been extinct for tens of thousands of years. You know that. But try telling your nervous system. You climb to your feet slowly and begin making your way up the canyon slope again. Your flashlight is tucked in your bag, but you don't use it. Somehow it feels rude. Too modern. Like flipping on a light in a sacred space. At the top, you reach a rock shelf that gives you a sweeping view of the valley. The sky is softening at the edges now. Just a hint of gray on the horizon. Dawn is near. Another day coming. Another day without Thylacoleo. You sit and rest again, and your mind drifts to the caves. Not the ones you've seen so far, but the deep ones. The ones beneath the earth where paleontologists in full-body suits and headlamps crawl through limestone mazes and whisper every time they find something extraordinary. That's where most of what we know about marsupial lions comes from fossil beds in places like Naracoorte Caves in South Australia or Mammoth Cave in Western Australia. These aren't just holes in the ground. They're prehistoric libraries. Layers of sediment packed with bones, pollen seeds, and sometimes entire skeletons. Some lions fell into sinkholes chasing prey. Others wandered in and never made it out. Some dens appeared to have been used for generations, sleeping spots, birthing spots, feeding stations. That means family lines. Cubs raised in darkness. Nap piles. Maybe even teaching moments. Imagine a lion mother showing her young how to climb a tree, or where to ambush kangaroos, or how to wait, because patience was everything. You wonder what a baby Thylacoleo looked like. Was it cute? Probably, most babies are. But cute with claws. Adorable and deadly, like a sleepy bear cub with bolt cutters for hands. You think about those fossils' perfect teeth. Still sharp after tens of millennia paws. So complete you can see the tendon grooves. Skulls split clean along the sagittal crest. And those bladed molars always the molars. Nothing like them in the modern world. One research team even tried building a 3D printed replica of the lion's skull and testing it against artificial bones. The results, it could crush a kangaroo's leg like a breadstick. Pound for pound, it might have had the strongest mammalian bite ever recorded. Stronger than a lion. Stronger than a wolf. Even a hyena. So yes, this wasn't just an ambusher. It was a punisher. And yet, you keep circling back to the naps. It's odd how much of Thylacoleo's fossil record suggests resting spots, shelters, hollow logs, claw marks where it dragged itself up for a better view. There's a stillness to its history. Not frantic, not chaotic, almost peaceful, as if it hunted hard, but rested harder. You rise and stretch. Your back cracks, your knees pop. Even in a timeless dreamscape, you're still made of joints and bad posture. The sky is lighter now. A few faint birds start singing the brave ones. A kangaroo snorts far off. You see it bounding across the clearing below alone. No herds anymore, just remnants. That's another side of the extinction. Thylacoleo didn't just vanish, it left holes. It left behavioral gaps in everything else. Prey animals changed because it was gone. Forests grew differently. Some species that used to avoid certain waterholes, they stopped being careful. Plants spread where they wouldn't have. The silence rippled outward. Extinction isn't just subtraction, it's rearrangement. And in this new arrangement, there's a lot of waiting. Waiting for fossils to be found. Waiting for old stories to be told again. Waiting for anyone to sit under the right tree and remember. You start your walk again, this time toward the east, where the light is breaking through the scrub and painting the world in soft bronze. The lion, of course, doesn't return. But you keep expecting it. And maybe that's the point. Some things don't need to be seen. Some things are remembered just enough. The morning light creeps over the land like it's not entirely sure it's welcome. Soft, slow, cautious. And for good reason, this land remembers heat. It remembers the weight of predators. It remembers lions. You walk with the rising sun at your back, following a shallow ridge, toward the entrance of a limestone cavern system. Cool, ancient, and impossibly quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't just happen, but settles thick as velvet. The mouth of the cave yawns ahead of you low and wide, half hidden by brush and shadow. You duck inside. Instantly, the temperature drops. The air goes from dry to damp, warm to cool. And suddenly, your ears ring from the change in pressure. The walls glitter faintly with mineral deposits, stalactites above stalagmites below, forming silent frozen drips in mid-air. Your flashlight beam slices through the dark, dancing across smooth limestone. This place has held secrets for tens of thousands of years. And it still holds one now. You step carefully, feet crunching softly on sediment, and scan the ground. Fossils have been pulled from places like this in jaw-dropping condition. Not just bones, but entire skeletons. Marsupial lions with claws still in place. Jaws frozen mid-snarl. Pelvises fused from arthritis. Even cubs nestled in the crooks of dead mothers' rib cages. This isn't just a cave, it's a tomb. And maybe also a nursery. Some researchers believe these caves were used for rearing young. There's evidence of repeated nesting in the same locations. Layers of claw marks stacked atop one another like growth rings. One den even showed signs of deep scratching in the cave floor pits, maybe dug out for warmth or shelter. You walk deeper, your flashlight gliding over the walls. They're faint but unmistakable are the gouges. Vertical, repeated, almost rhythmic, like the lion was pacing. or sharpening, or just bored. One claw drag trails longer than the others lower, angled down, and suddenly you realize this was slipping. The floor here is slick. It must have rained, or flooded, or shifted. Maybe this lion came in seeking shelter and couldn't get back out. That's how many of these fossils were preserved. Not in battle, not in glory, but in quiet, slow decline. Trapped, waiting, hoping. You sit near a large slab of fallen rock and turn off your light. Total blackness. A kind of darkness modern life never offers anymore. The kind that makes you aware of your own heartbeat. You imagine the lion here breathing slowly. Alone. Listening to drips. Maybe waiting for footsteps that never came. Maybe dreaming of kangaroo thoughts. Or the warm sun on bark. And then, stillness. It's almost too much. You flick your light back on and breathe. The beam dances over a small pile of bones in the corner. Kangaroo, most likely. But among them, a different shape rounder. More compact. A skull with a pronounced sagittal crest. Forward-facing sockets and molars that taper into blades. You're staring at Thylacoleo again. Not a carving, not a shadow, but the real thing. Its jaw is partially open teeth, perfectly aligned. Its sockets empty but still angled in that classic predator stare. Even in death it looks ready, as if the right sound could bring it upright again. You kneel next to it studying the detail. The lower jaw is cracked, maybe from a fall. Or a fight, or time. But the claws are intact. You count 3 fingers, then that unmistakable thumb claw curled inward like a final threat. You whisper without realizing you were beautiful. Because it was. Not beautiful in a cuddly Instagram way. Beautiful in the way a mountain is. Or a storm. A something shaped by time and necessity. Something perfectly designed for the world it lived in. And now it's here, cold, quiet, preserved by accident and silence. You take one last look and then rise. The weight of history in your chest is heavier than your pack. This isn't like reading about extinction in a textbook. This is standing in it. This is touching the ribs of something that once ruled the night and curled its tail around its nose while it dreamed. You walk back toward the entrance, your light sweeping across the walls one last time. You don't see lions, but you see where they were. And that's almost enough. Outside, the light has shifted again. Full daylight now, birds chirping, insects buzzing like somebody hit resume on the soundtrack. You squint up at the blue sky and feel a strange mix of loss and awe. These caves don't mourn. They remember. That's the difference. You look back one final time before stepping into the sunlight. The lion in the cave doesn't follow. It stays where it's been for thousands of years, silent, waiting, perfect. Just asleep. Maybe forever. Maybe not. The sun is climbing now, higher, brighter, hotter. But somehow it feels gentler after that long stretch in the cool breath of the cave. You step outside and blink at the sudden glare. It's like re-entering a story after reading the last page. You've touched bones, felt claw marks, looked into the sockets of something that once ruled this land. And now the story picks up where it left off. You follow a well-worn game trail that winds away from the limestone cliffs, down toward a stretch of scrubby grassland. The vegetation here is yellowed and dry, struggling under the heat. Everything looks thirsty, tired. The land is holding on, but only just. It must have been like this during the lion's last days. A world on the edge of failure. Paleoclimate records, tree rings, lakebed sediments, isotopic analyses tell the tale. Australia's climate shifted dramatically. Toward the end of the Pleistocene, rainfall patterns broke. Droughts lengthened. vegetation changed, which meant herbivores changed. And once the prey moves or dies, the predator has a choice: follow, adapt, or fade. Thylacoleo seems to have tried all three. You crest a low hill and find yourself looking out over an old floodplain flat, silty, dotted with stunted trees and cracked streambeds. This would have been a lush, dependable feeding ground once, a place where diprotodons grazed, where procoptodon mobs strolled, where the lion waited. You spot more prints in the dust kangaroo mostly, but light scattered almost nervous. The sense of abundance is gone. This place has become a memory of itself, a stage with no actors. And then you see it, a line of bones in the middle of the plain, not scattered, not random, marching in a single weary path. You follow it. The bones are long, heavy, wombat maybe, or juvenile diprotodon. The spacing is strange, regular like footsteps, but incomplete. The skeleton isn't whole. It fades. A shoulder blade here, a vertebra there, and then nothing. It's the trail of something dying, walking until it couldn't anymore. And there, just beyond the last bone, are paw prints. 2 sets, side by side, deep, one slightly behind the other. It's hard to know what you're looking at. A chase, a hunt, or something more complicated. Because here's the thing, predators don't always kill. Sometimes they watch, sometimes they follow, sometimes they wait. Maybe this was a lion tracking a wounded prey animal waiting for it to collapse. Or maybe it wasn't hungry. Maybe it was just curious, or cautious, or reluctant. Some researchers believe predators like Thylacoleo may have been more flexible than we assume, that when prey grew scarce, they scavenged, ate what they could, waited longer, rested more. Some even suggest Thylacoleo may have shifted its behavior in those final years, less territorial, more nomadic, drifting between shrinking resource patches. Whatever happened here, you're standing in its shadow, the end of something. A lion walked, then walked no more. You sit beside the bones and scan the sky. A wedge-tailed eagle soars overhead, scanning the same plane. It's a relic too, one of the few large predators that made it through the extinction window. Maybe because it flies. Maybe because it eats anything. But even it seems small in this vast, empty space. And then the heat rises again. You feel it coming before you see it, a wave shimmering off the plain, like it's trying to erase the bones, blur the past, wipe the record clean. You retreat into the shade of a lone acacia tree and sip water from your pack. You think about how lions survived through so much drought fire shifting prey, and how eventually none of it was enough. A bad dry season can test any species, but the last dry season, that's the one that breaks you. Fossil pollen records show a sharp decline in grass species near the end of Thylacoleo's run. Less food for herbivores, fewer herbivores for predators, and those that remained scrawny, alert, fast. You picture a lone lion stalking through this exact plain, hungry, hot, jaws tight with thirst. No sound but the crackle of twigs underfoot and the maddening buzz of flies. It waits by the waterhole, but the water is gone. It crouches in the shade, but no one comes. It walks, and then lies down, and doesn't get up again. Not in fear, not in battle, but in quiet. You can almost feel it where the last paw touched down, where the tail settled in the dust, where the eyes closed for the final time. No headlines, no extinction sirens, just stillness. You rise and walk slowly across the plain, not stepping on the bones. The prints beside them are fading. The wind is picking up. Soon, no one will know this moment happened. But you do, and that might be enough. The sun's past its peak now, casting long spears of light across the plain. You keep walking slower this time, as if the weight of what you've seen is catching up with your legs. It's not exhaustion, it's reflection. The land is changing again. You feel it. Ahead, the ground dips slightly, drawing you into a pocket of silence, broken only by a gentle rustle of wind. You pass through a grove of ghost gums, tall, bone-pale trunks, peeling in long ribbons like the trees are shedding memories. Their bark flicks off in curls under your fingers. Each one might have once been a hiding spot, or a resting place, or a launch pad. Because here's something odd. While the daytime belongs to fire and thirst, the nighttime is when things got truly interesting. You emerge into a shaded glade where the air is noticeably cooler. The wind hushes. The world leans in. It feels like dusk has arrived early. Your body relaxes without asking permission. This is the hour Thylacoleo preferred. No one knows exactly how it structured its day, but fossil evidence suggests it might have been crepuscular, most active at twilight and dawn. A perfect time to hunt sleepy prey or tired humans. But what happens when the light disappears entirely? You find a fallen log and sit again. The grass here is taller, the soil softer. You spot more tracks, not lion this time. Something smaller. A nocturnal scavenger. Maybe even a Tasmanian devil or an ancient quoll. The marsupial lion shared its world with a whole cast of characters, many of whom are gone now or hanging on by a thread. And when the lion's rhythm changed when its hunt failed or its territory shrank, so did its habits. Some researchers argue that in its final decades, Thylacoleo's behavior shifted, hunting less, scavenging more, sleeping longer, and weirdly waking later. You can imagine it, one lion tucked into the low branches of a eucalyptus tree, too weak to hunt during the heat, waiting for the stars before attempting a kill. A silent adaptation. Or maybe it found other ways. Maybe it scavenged the kills of other animals, dingoes, devils, even crocodiles. Maybe it fished. Maybe it broke open bones, left by humans licking the marrow from the cracked remains of prey it no longer had the strength to chase. That would have changed everything. A lion that once ruled from the top, reduced to sneaking in from the edges. Less predator, more opportunist. You look up and imagine the sky through its eyes, stars blazing, the Southern Cross hanging low, the bush full of soft movements and half-heard footsteps. Some paleontologists believe Thylacoleo could see well at night. Its forward-facing eyes and brain structure suggest a strong vision, maybe even in low light. Combine that with patience, stealth, and a bite that could silence almost anything, and you had a creature perfectly suited for the quiet hours. But only if the quiet hours had prey. You stand and begin walking again as twilight starts to arrive in earnest. The world tilts toward blue. Birds call out their last warnings of the day. Somewhere distant, a kangaroo thumps the ground, one thud, then silence. The glade opens onto a higher ridge. You climb it slowly. Your breath comes a little heavier now, not from exertion, but emotion. You're getting close. To what exactly, you don't know, but there's a feeling in your chest, that ancient tension. At the top of the ridge, you find something strange. A circle, not rocks, not fire pits, just a space in the grass where everything seems pressed flat naturally, gently, like something large has rested here again and again. A nap spot. You sit at the edge of it, palms pressed to the earth. It's warmer than it should be. Maybe it's just the sun. Maybe it's something else. You picture the lion again. Not hunting, not leaping, just resting, breathing, watching. This was a creature that lived in between predator and scavenger, cat and marsupial, monster and mystery. Its extinction wasn't a roar, it was a fade. Not with drama, but with pauses, fewer meals, later nights, longer naps, and eventually just one nap too long. The stars come back one by one. The breeze carries that faint hint of eucalyptus again. The sky goes lavender, then deep navy. You stay in the circle, not moving as the world resets around you. You listen for movement, you hear nothing. And that's exactly the point. Somewhere long ago, a lion once closed its eyes on this ridge, dreamed of kangaroos, twitching tails, the rush of blood through soft fur. It slept, and the world kept turning. The night deepens now, wrapping everything in a blue so thick it feels physical. You sit still on the flattened patch of grass, that quiet circle where something powerful once rested. The stars above are the same ones. Thylacoleo watched no different at all. And you wonder if it ever looked up with curiosity, or if it only cared about what was on the ground, what moved, what breathed, what could be caught. You rise slowly and begin walking again, guided only by starlight and the faint trace of instinct that says, "Go this way." You're heading downhill now toward a cluster of trees that seem older, denser, their bark wrapped in the folds of time. And then something glints in the dark. Not eyes, not metal, a lens. You blink. Modern light bounces back from a small headlamp. Someone crouched near the entrance of a sinkhole, half buried in red dust and littered with equipment. A paleontologist. Welcome to the present. You step closer, boots crunching softly. The researcher doesn't look up. He's carefully brushing soil from a delicate structure embedded in stone. You stop just behind him and realize you're looking at a piece of ribcage. Big, curved, fossilized. He finally looks up, smiles like he's been expecting you, doesn't speak. Instead, he lifts a hand and points further down toward the edge of the dig. You follow his gesture and see the unmistakable silhouette of a skull. You know it now. You've seen it in dreams and daylight. You could draw it blindfolded. Thylacoleo carnifex. The jaw is open, slightly, molars exposed like stone scissors. One side is cracked. The eye sockets look up, not down. The skull is nearly complete. And around it, more bones. An entire skeleton, nearly untouched. This is a major find. The researcher finally breaks the silence. We think it fell in chasing something. He pauses, then shrugs. Or it was already dying. He brushes more soil away and you crouch beside him. The bones are packed in tight. The front limbs show stress damage likely from climbing. The claws are huge. One thumb claw is still arched inward as if ready for one last strike. But it never came. Some lions ended their story in caves. Others in drought-scorched plains. But this one, it ended in a fall. A mistake. Or maybe just bad luck. You ask the researcher how old the bones are. He doesn't even glance up. 46,000 years, he says. With the kind of casual awe only someone who works with time can have. Give or take a few hundred. That phrase hits you. Give or take a few hundred. That's a blink, a breath, a whisper in deep time. And yet, for this lion, it was the end. You move carefully around the dig site, glancing at labeled flags stuck into the dirt, vertebra 1, femur, metatarsal. Each a piece of a story told backward. One graduate student nearby is 3D scanning the skull. Another scribbles notes into a waterproof field notebook. There's no awe in their faces, just focus. Respectful practice focus. They've done this before. You ask them if they've named it yet. The student laughs. Not officially. Then adds after a pause, I call her Maggie. You look back at the skeleton. Yeah, she could be a Maggie. This too is part of extinction. The way the past becomes personal. We name bones. We guess stories. We imagine habits, quirks, fears. We reach backward and try to give the unknown a shape we recognize. But the truth, Maggie was just a lion. A silent, solitary hunter with blade-shaped molars and a talent for falling asleep in trees. She didn't know what extinction meant. She only knew hunger, wind, the rustle of kangaroo fur in the grass, the heat of sun on her back. And now she's here, buried in stone, half dug, half remembered. You rise and thank the team. They not already back in their work. As you walk away, the glow of their headlamps fades, swallowed by the dark. You pass a stack of plastic crates, each one filled with labeled fossils, wrapped in cloth like ancient gifts. These bones will travel. They'll go to labs, be scanned, measured, modeled, shown in museums, discussed in papers with long titles, turned into digital reconstructions that twitch and walk again if only on a screen. And maybe someday animated studied reborn in pixels. But tonight, they sleep, just like the lion once did. You glance back at the dig site one last time and imagine the skeleton whole, alive, breathing, padding softly through the trees. No roar, no drama, just presence. The kind you feel in your bones long after the sound is gone. The stars guide you again, pulling you away from the dig site and back toward the open bush. The modern world recedes behind you. Flashlights, dimming voices, quieting the beep of a GPS device. Swallowed by wind and time. It's strange how fast the shift happens. 1 minute you're standing in science in the present in certainty, and the next you're back in the story, in the shadow of a lion. You walk slowly now. Not because you're tired, but because the night has grown rich, thick with the kind of silence that makes you feel like you're inside a dream. Every step crunches softly. Every branch creaks with meaning. You're back in Thylacoleo's world, and it's still waiting to be understood. You stop near a flat rock ledge overlooking a wide gully. It's empty now, just a sea of moonlit shrubs and ghost trees. But it once would have been alive with movement herds, grazing scavengers, lurking lions prowling. You sit, pull out your notebook, and begin to sketch. Not because you're an artist, but because sometimes the hand remembers things better than the eyes do. You draw the skull first, wide deep with those slicing molars like twin blades waiting to drop. Then the body stocky, coiled, powerful. Short legs built to launch, not chase. Tail stiff thick used for balance as it climbed trees. Or stood tall before leaping. Then the paws, massive, padded, each tipped with claws, including the claw. The murder thumb. And the eyes, always forward-facing, always watching. You pause and add a final detail, a tree. Gnarled, tall, with a lion draped across its branch like a fallen shadow. Because that more than anything is what sticks with you, how often they slept. How much of their time was spent not killing but resting, waiting, watching. Even in extinction they nap. You flip the page and begin again, this time sketching the fossil lab you saw months ago. A museum room filled with plastic bones and digital screens. There, scientists study the bite force. They run simulations of Thylacoleo attacking kangaroo stand-ins made from ballistic gel. They test pressure points, stress fractures, calculate angles of impact. The verdict is always the same pound for pound. The most powerful mammalian bite ever recorded. More than a tiger, more than a jaguar, more than anything still walking the earth, and yet gone. You set the notebook down, lean back on your hands, and stare at the moon. Its light paints the land silver. For a second, the whole world seems made of bone. You wonder if Maggie, your lion from the dig, ever saw this same moon, sat on this same ridge, listened to the same breeze. You wonder if she ever missed something. Because extinction isn't always abrupt. It can creep. It can stretch across generations. The last lions might not have known they were the last. But maybe they felt it, the empty waterholes, the prey that didn't come back, the silent ridges, the younger lions that didn't survive the dry season, the trees with no scratch marks, the wind with no scent to follow. Maybe extinction feels like loneliness, even for a lion. You close your eyes and let your thoughts drift toward that idea. And when you open them again, something odd happens. You start to see shadows differently. Not threatening, not loud, just present. You imagine the lions walking beside you, not ghosts, not hallucinations but echoes. Their paws silent, their breath warm. They watch you the way they once watched kangaroos and wombats and humans curious quiet, wondering if you're worth the energy. You don't run, you just nod. You acknowledge them, because remembering is its own kind of protection. And presence, real or imagined, is a kind of survival. You gather your things and rise. The wind has picked up. The land smells like saltbush and eucalyptus. You hear a rustle in the scrub, then nothing. Just the rhythm of night, and the knowledge that something with claws once walked here, once ruled here, and once fell asleep right where you're standing. The wind shifts again. It's a gentle sweep brushing across your arms like breath from a giant creature that's long since stopped breathing. And yet, here it is, reminding you it was. That it mattered. You walk along the ridge in silence, each footfall placed carefully, almost reverently. Not because there's danger, but because there was. That memory still lingers in the soil. Like everything out here, remembers what it feared. Below, the gully opens wide. Moonlight settles in the dips like mist. You spot the glint of exposed rock, perhaps the wall of another collapsed cave. And though you can't see inside, you feel the weight of what's down there. Not bones this time, but stories. Because when the marsupial lion died, it didn't just leave behind a body, it left behind questions. Every skeleton is a paragraph in a language we're still learning to read. Scientists pore over them for clues. Stress fractures, growth rings, healed wounds, even the alignment of tiny wear marks on molars. A lion that limped. A lion that bit and missed. A lion that lived long enough to heal. Each detail builds a life, and sometimes a death. You sit on a warm rock ledge overlooking the gully and remember one particular paper, a recent one, where researchers debated whether Thylacoleo went extinct quickly or gradually. The fossil record offers both possibilities. In some regions, lion bones vanish abruptly. In others, they linger in shallow layers, almost like aftershocks. One theory, microclimates. Pockets of livable land where lions held on longer. Cooler caves. Denser forests. Places with water that didn't dry up. A few individuals, maybe even families, clinging to the edge of survival for generations, while the rest of the continent turned hostile. It's a romantic idea, and a sad one, because even if they survived longer, they did so alone. You walk again, tracing a ridgeline path, where ancient roots crack the stone. A kangaroo startles in the dark and bounds off a soft thump, thump, thump into the bush. You freeze, not out of fear, but instinct, as if the lion in you just woke up too. Because here's another truth we carry these creatures with us. In our myths, our science, our bones. The Aboriginal peoples who walked this land long before you knew this. Their stories, handed down for tens of thousands of years, often speak of powerful animals in the trees, or stalking from the shadows, creatures that watched, that taught caution, that shaped how you moved through country. Were those stories about Thylacoleo, not by name maybe, but in shape, in soul? Almost certainly. Some cave paintings show animals with wide jaws and curved claws. Others tell oral tales of spirits in the scrub who leap silently and never miss. The details change. The presence does not. It's a kind of memory that doesn't need fossils. And sometimes it outlasts them. You continue walking, your eyes adjusting to the moonlight now. It's easier to see, if not clearly, then meaningfully. Everything glows with soft edges. You reach another clearing, and here, under a lone tree, you find something startling. Not a fossil, but a sculpture. Modern, clearly carved in the last few years. It's small, maybe knee-high, fashioned from ironwood or stone. And it's unmistakably Thylacoleo. You recognize the shape, powerful forelimbs, shortened tail, those wide jaws caught mid-yawn. It's sitting upright like it's just paused in the middle of a nap. Someone remembered it. Someone honored it. You sit beside the statue and run your fingers over the carving. The surface is rough, weather-worn, wind-polished. The name of the artist isn't clear, just a set of initials. But that's not the point. The point is, it's here. This lion, long banished from the world, is still being called back. Not in fear, but in reverence. And that's something Extinction doesn't count on. It ends the life, but not the legacy. You look up again. The stars are fading. A pale edge of blue bleeds into the eastern sky. Dawn again. One more night remembered. One more lion sketched in shadow. You whisper thanks to the statue, not expecting an answer but offering one anyway. And as you rise, you feel the air shift once more. Not colder, not warmer, just aware, as if something very old just turned over in its sleep. The sky is brightening by the minute now. That soft, steely blue of pre-dawn has warmed into pale gold. Shadows stretch long across the ground. The trees are coming back into color, greens, browns, grays. And the earth beneath your boots feels solid again. You're coming to the end, not just of this trail but of something quieter. The hum that's been under your skin since you stepped into the past. It's fading. Not in a sad way. More like the end of a dream you're finally ready to wake up from. You keep walking east and the landscape begins to shift again. The red soils and spinifex give way to grassy hills dotted with rocks. You spot birds, cockatoos, squawking into the sun. A goanna scurries under a log. Even the kangaroo you startled last night has returned, grazing near the edge of the trees. The world is alive again. But you can still feel the lion, not as a threat, as an echo. You pause at the top of one final hill and look out over the bush. It's quiet, soft, awake. You imagine it hundreds of years ago, then thousands. Herds moving across the land, birds swirling above, and somewhere in the tree line, still as shadow, was Thylacoleo. Watching, waiting, napping. This place belonged to it. And in small ways, maybe it still does. Because the thing about Extinction, what they don't tell you in the textbooks is that it doesn't erase everything. The animal goes, the body disappears, but what it changed remains. Thylacoleo shaped its world. It made kangaroos nervous. It made caves dangerous. It made trees strategic. It made waterholes unpredictable. It was a predator, yes, but also an architect of caution. And now, even though it's gone, the systems it shaped still carry the imprint. That's what legacy means in the wild. You take one last look around and begin your descent into a new part of the bush, a more familiar trail. The land feels warmer now, more welcoming. But that's not because the lions are gone. It's because you're carrying them with you. In your memory, in your curiosity, in your quiet. At the base of the hill, you pass a rusted trail marker. You brush away the dirt at its base and spot a plaque. Marsupial Lion Discovery Site. Please respect the land, it remembers. You smile, because you know that's true. The land does remember, and so do you. You walk a little further just until the trees part. And you can see the dirt road where your journey began. The breeze carries a new sound, distant bird song, maybe a car engine far away. The creak of eucalyptus branches in the morning air. But no thuds, no claws, no yawns from high above. Just the quiet peace of a land that once held giants and now holds their stories. You sit on a flat rock near the road and take out your notebook one last time. This time, no sketches, just words. A note to yourself, a reminder. When lions ruled trees and slept like kings, the world moved slower, quieter, not safer but truer. We didn't just lose an animal, we lost a rhythm. Listen carefully. Sometimes in the wind you can still hear it. You close the notebook, slide it back into your bag, and rise. The sun breaks over the horizon at last, spilling fire across the sky. Not a lion's roar, but something just as powerful. Now, let's slow everything down. You've traveled far through time, through dust, through dreams. You've followed claw marks across ancient rock, stood at the edge of vanished waterholes, and sat beside bones older than cities. And now here we are, still, safe, quiet, breathe in deeply, slowly. Let your chest rise with all the space this world still holds. Let it fall again gently like the last breath of something curling up in tall grass. Maybe you feel a little different now, maybe not. That's okay. You don't need to remember every fact or every footprint. Just the feeling, that hum beneath the surface, that sense of presence, that knowing that something walked here once and left the world changed. Imagine the lion again peaceful now, its breathing steady, its eyes closed, dreaming of a world that's still warm, still wild, still full of stories. Let that image soften into the background. Let the night take its last breath and give way to rest. You are safe now. Nothing stalks you here. The shadows are just shadows. The wind is just wind. And the lion is asleep. Good night, traveler. You made it.